Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. My name is Carlo Bobilas, and I'll be your moderator. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, technical advocate, Learn with Cisco, Alexander Stevenson. But before I hand over the mic, I do have a few housekeeping items to cover about today's session. Today's session will be recorded and made available for on demand playback, so please be sure to stay tuned until the end for additional information. Next, we'd love to hear from you during today's session. So if you have a question for Alex, please scan that QR code that's on the screen to participate live. We also have another QR code located towards the bottom right corner of your screen to join the post event discussion thread in case you want to collaborate further. With that, let me go ahead and welcome Alex. Alex, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hack the Stack, Cisco Ethical Hacking, Active and Passive Recon with Kali Linux. I'm Alexander Stevenson, Technical Advocate at Learn with Cisco. I'm very pleased to present to you today some material straight from the Cisco Networking Academy's Ethical Hacker course. Today, we'll be exploring Module 3, Information Gathering and Vulnerability Scanning. This includes passive reconnaissance, active reconnaissance, performing vulnerability scans, and analyzing the vulnerability scans. But first, we need to make sure we're all on the same page. So let's reacquaint ourselves with some terms that we will use throughout this session. First of all, we have reconnaissance. Reconnaissance or recon is always the first step in a cyber attack or defense. So with each step of the information gathering phase, our goal is to gather additional information, and we begin that with passive reconnaissance. Passive reconnaissance is just a method of listening and information gathering in which you do not really interact with the system that you're targeting. It simply involves listening for information that is freely available and then using that later in the active reconnaissance phase. Active reconnaissance is a method of performing information gathering where we use tools to actively send out probes to the target network. We're going to gather more information this way, but we need to be wary because we can potentially give away our identity or our intent. And then finally, we need to understand what is open source intelligence or OSINT. From an ethical hacking perspective, this is our main source of information. So everything that's freely available on the internet, including public websites and forums, social media, government and public records, search engines, and open databases. All right, Carlo, let's switch over to my laptop, if you will, so we can take a look at the Cisco Networking Academy's Ethical Hacker course so they can understand how we set this lab up. Excellent. Okay, so what you're looking at now is the course introduction. To understand how the labs work, you need to go to section 1.3, where they do a fantastic job of displaying the virtual machines and the virtual switch and how everything flows together. This is very simple. Once you take a look at the diagrams and read the instructions, you will understand everything clearly. And then finally, if we go to 1.3.6, we will see the lab for the pre-built Kali Linux virtual machine, which we will be using today. If you click on lab here, you can get to the download links and the information about running the different virtual machines. You can use VirtualBox, UVM like I'm using. If you have a Windows, a Mac, a Linux, it doesn't matter. All the downloads and instructions are here and are very clear. So let's go ahead and take a look at Kali Linux. This is what Kali Linux looks like. It's similar to most operating systems. You have your menus and whatnot. Here's a web browser open, and on the left are the many tools displayed. Today we'll be focusing mainly on the reconnaissance tools, but once you have some time, discover for yourself all the different amazing tools that are out there. All right, let's jump right in. So we mentioned OSINT is where we're going to get most of the information in the passive recon phase. A valuable tool is the OSINT framework. Anybody can reference this website at osintframework.com. They have maps, social networks, domain names, anything that you can think of from an ethical hacking perspective that is OSINT relevant. Let's take a look at usernames and search engines. If we go to what's my name, okay, this is a GitHub repo of a popular tool Oh, sorry, I went too fast there. Here is a GitHub repo of a popular tool called What's My Name that is also used in many other tools. This is a common theme we'll see in ethical hacking where tools are chained together, methods are chained together back to back to back to get more bang for our buck, if you will. The first one on this list is the What's My Name app. Here's something that's very relevant. Cookies. It's asking us to accept cookies. Many people think erroneously that if we decline cookies, this protects us from a safety perspective or from a security perspective. It most certainly does not. All this will do is it will prevent, it will give us some privacy, but it won't prevent attacks. If you want to protect yourself from a security perspective, you need to make sure your browser and operating system are updated. You need to use strong passwords and a password manager, multi-factor authentication, and be wary of what you click on and what you download. So I'm going to go ahead and accept this. And I'm going to put my username because What's My Name is for searching usernames. So I'm going to put my Cisco username here, and I'm going to click search. Okay, and I just need to verify that I'm a human. We've all been there. We all need to do it. Okay, so the search is running now. While that's going on, let me show you what the same search from a Google perspective will provide. The first four things here are things that I've written for Cisco. Everything else has nothing to do with me. But if we go back to what's my name.web, almost all of this information is regarding me. Well, at least the first several ones. And as we go deeper, yes, this is mine also, this is mine also, and there's 8 pages of such information. So from an open source perspective, this is a treasure trove compared to a simple Google search. All right, so next up is the command line tool, hate mail. I know the name sounds intimidating, but it's not what you think. Hate mail is a tool to see if email addresses have been compromised. So now we're moving beyond just a username to a full email. If I run hate mail -t against Bill Gates at Microsoft.com and Steve Jobs at Apple.com, this is what it will tell me. Not compromised. So Steve Jobs is safe and Bill Gates is safe. Not compromised. This is a tool you will not find on a normal operating system. This is specific to Kali Linux and such tools. All right, next up is Spiderfoot. Now, Spiderfoot I really like because it is also an open source tool, but it is a scanner that queries over 1,000 open information sources and presents the results in a GUI interface or a convenient UI, user interface, right? So all we need to do is take this command right here, paste it in. Oops. I don't need this much. Okay. Now it's running the Spiderfoot server. If I go back over here and reload this, it's running locally and it shows scans that I've run previously. Here's one that we run against hackertraining.org. An important point that I need to make here is that all the websites that we're using in this course to run tests and scans against, we have permission to do so. You do not want to do these things against websites you don't have permission to run tests or probes against. You could find yourself in some trouble. All right, so let's look at this scan we've conducted against hackertraining.org. We simply put in the URL and we get all of this information back. So I can see the IPv6 addresses that are associated with this domain. I can see physical location, domain registrar, co-hosted sites, everything that's associated from an open source perspective with just one simple search. And all I needed was the URL of the website. How cool is that? All right, so next up, we're going to use Recon NG. Recon NG can be accessed from the menu. If we go to Reconnaissance and go down and click Recon NG, it will pop up like so. Let me go ahead and run this in this window here. So it'll be much smoother. All right, okay, so In Recon NG, we can just type help to see what the commands are that are available. And we're going to create a workspace. We're going to refresh it, and we're going to search for all the modules that are available in this tool, Recon NG. We see we have JSON tools, vulnerabilities, GitHub, Twitter, name checks. There's hundreds here. We want a specific tool called Hacker Target. So we're going to search for that one, and we're going to install it or load it. Next, I'm going to set the target as hacksaw.net. This is another website that we have permission to run scans against. So I'm just going to put that in there, and we're going to verify that yes, hacksaw.net is the source, or the target in this case, of our passive open source information gathering. And I just type in info right here to confirm. Oh yes, that is what I just did. All right. So next, to run the scan, we simply type run. It's a little bit unclear. So if we just run show hosts, instead, we get a much nicer picture of all the domains, subdomains, and IP addresses that are associated with this website, so that later in our active reconnaissance phase, we can use this information to dig deeper and get the nitty-gritty details that we need. All right, so let me exit out of Recon NG, and let's talk about DNS. A lot of people here understand DNS, and you need to, no matter what you do in networking, from standard enterprise to DevOps and now AI. DNS is as relevant as ever, cloud, what have you. Here are some commands that you may be aware of: host or dig, that can be run on most systems. So this is not unique to Kali Linux. I've run host hacker.org, and I've run dig hacker.org, and I get some relevant IP addresses. I get some names of some mail servers, some more IP addresses here, and some very basic information. So you could run this on your regular system and get the output. But with Kali Linux, we have a tool called DNS Recon. I can run this command DNS Recon against hacker.org, and we can already see the difference. It's night and day. All right, so we have DNSSEC keys, or DNSSEC, DNS keys. We have the start of authorities. We have name servers. We have IP addresses. And there's just so much more. There's different options on this tool, so you can gather even more than that. This is one of my favorites. I really love it. Another popular tool that we can use is whois. So we've just run DNS Recon against hacker.org. Let's see what whois at hacker.recon or hacker.org will provide for us. All right, so this person has very wisely purchased domain protection for this website, so we're not going to get much information. We can glean a few details, but it's not really clear exactly who is hosting that website or where they're hosting it. Let's try the same thing against Cisco. Do you think we'll have more information or less? Tell me in the chat. Well, it turns out we're going to get more information, right? Cisco can afford to do this because they have advanced security mechanisms, both cyber and physical, and they don't have to worry about threats. But you also want to be careful, even with things like this, how far you dig, because you could get yourself into some trouble. All right, so next up is NSLookup. You may have heard of NSLookup. NSLookup is something you can also run on a normal system, but here we're going to show you how to chain it together and lead into some active recon that's going to provide some juicy tidbits that are valuable in our ethical hacking. So let's just enter the NSLookup terminal. Okay, so if I say cisco.com, oops. If I just say cisco.com in NSLookup, I'm going to get an IP address there. Now, I can change it up and I can switch to DNS. It's not letting me copy there. Oh, looks like we're having some technical difficulties. All right, Carlo, this is an excellent time to switch over to Slido and have the users take a look at that so that our audience can understand the bigger picture.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much. And so, as Alex is going to go through and work out the issue, let's look at Slido. So, we do have some questions in the queue. So, let me take a look. Oh, looks like it's being answered. All right. If you do have additional questions, do scan that QR code that's shown on the screen. Um, Again, there'll be two additional QR codes, but the top right corner is actually the same one that takes you to the Slido, and then the bottom one is going to take you to the post-event discussion thread to continue the conversation over on the Cisco Learning Network. All right. Let's see if there's any additional questions. Oh, we're still waiting. Okay. A common question that we see here is if today's session is going to be recorded. Yes, it is. And will it be made available for on-demand playback? And the answer is yes. Actually, it will be made available for on-demand playback immediately. So as soon as the session ends, you can go click on that post-event discussion thread or scan that QR code, and then from there it'll take you um, to the page where we'll have the actual live stream embedded, the recording itself. All right, so let me go ahead and pass it back over to Alex.
Thank you so much, Carlo. I appreciate that. Everything's sorted out now. Okay, so if we switch the type of search to DNS by indicating set type equals NS and put in cisco.com within NS lookup, we have some name servers. Now, if I take one of these name servers and let me see, if we take one of these name servers later, we can get an IP address from this one as well. And look, we have one right here also. Okay, so the next one is mail server. If we set the type to mail server and also use cisco.com, here we go. We get the name servers. Or mail servers rather. This is exactly what we're looking for. Here we go. RCDNMX01. All right, that's the one I want. So now I set the type to A for IP address instead of DNS, and I run the query, and I get an IP address. So with this first query, just using cisco.com, we got an IP address. Using DNS, we also got an IP address. Using the MX or mail option, we got a domain name server, which we then ran against an NS lookup using the type A or IP address. So sometimes you need to sort of work in reverse with the information that you get, whether that be a domain or a name server, and then use that same tool or another tool to translate that into an IP address, which you can run probes against later in the active reconnaissance. All right, so let me exit out of this. Love this tool, NS Lookup. Okay, here are the 3 IP addresses that we just collected. I have them here on the left because I ran this lab before, and I can use whois and dig, some common tools, against those IP addresses, and we can get some valuable information here. So this is a redirect. All right, so based on those IP addresses, I get some valuable information here. This is a redirect at cisco.com that tells me, all right, hot standby routing protocol. Okay, this IP address is a router. You start digging through it and you get some very interesting information. This is so cool. And I just know that many of y'all are going to love going through all the different tools in here and finding this information. All right. So next up is Subfinder. We've been working with domains the hard way, right? We extract the domain with whois or NS lookup, and then we get the IP address. And this is good. We need to get this foundation in, right? Just like anything you do, you want to practice the basics, understand how everything flows together. But if we want to just get the domains and subdomains, we can do that quickly with a tool called Subfinder. So if I do Subfinder on hacker.org, there's going to be a big difference between those basic but essential tools we just ran and what's available here, right? So from the website, you can see all the subdomains and the associated IP addresses in 8 seconds. Right. Once you build up your proficiency, you're going to move on to these more automated scans. And Active Recon is all about automated scans. Passive, you're going to do more manual things like we've been doing now, which is still cool and I love doing, getting my hands dirty. But when we get into active, then that's when we're doing the automated scans. All right. So here's the thing that many people sort of get tripped up with, because ethical hacking is more difficult now that we have the cloud involved. If I do host netflix.com, I get some IP addresses, and IP addresses in the old days, right? Those are servers that we can just run tests against. And I certainly wouldn't run any exploits against netflix.com, but it was much simpler. We knew things were hosted on servers, but now things are in the cloud. So if I take these IP addresses and run NS lookup, I can see that this is hosted on Amazon AWS, right? It's not as simple as it was before. Things are hosted in the cloud now. So just to be aware that everything is not always what it seems to be. All right. And that reminds me, sometimes when you're doing active or passive recon, you'll see things that may seem obvious. Take a look at my desktop here. You see a folder that says passwords, right? Tempting. Oh, do not open. Let me just click on that. Can anyone tell me what happened in the chat? If you can see what's going on. Oh, right. So things are not always what they appear. You need to be careful, even in passive recon, what you're doing, because things are deceptive by design in ethical hacking. That's what makes it a little bit dangerous, but exciting at the same time. All right, so let's look at SSL scan so we can get some certificate information and some ciphers and whatnot. All right, so we can see just by running SSL scan that's built into Kali Linux against this website that we get some really cool information. They're using TLS version 1.2. Let me see. They're not vulnerable to Heartbleed. We've got some supported server ciphers here. Another cool tool. And then EXIF tool. So far, we've been doing command line. We've been doing OSINT in the browser. But there's other things in OSINT too, like photos. Here's an image of a dock. Would you consider this passive or active recon if you went to this dock and took this picture about what's going on here? Let us know in the chat what you think, if this is active or passive recon. Anyway, there's a tool called the EXIF tool that we can take and run against this image and get information about it. This I love. All right, so it tells us the orientation, the type of camera that was used. No flash was used. Magnetic north was the direction it was facing. It gives the GPS coordinates, right? This is just the tip of the iceberg of what this course, Ethical Hacking, on the Cisco Networking Academy is going to provide using Kali Linux. It's just mind-blowing. And I just can't get enough of this stuff. All right, Carlo, please switch back over to the slide so we can jump into 3.2 quickly. All right, great. All right. Is it switching? There we go. Active recon. Okay. So now we're going to be talking about active recon, which includes enumeration and fingerprinting. Enumeration, y'all, is a kind of gray area. Passive recon does enumeration because you're getting host, user, operating system information, but it can also cross into active depending how deep you go. Now, fingerprinting is typically going to be considered active reconnaissance. We're getting specific information that we've taken in the passive stage and done some focused investigation to get the details. This is called fingerprinting, and it is most certainly most often in the active reconnaissance phase of ethical hacking. Okay. Okay, next up. Okay, got it. There was a little bit of lag there between the slide changes. I apologize, but we just explained enumeration for those of you that just joined, in fingerprinting, both considered active reconnaissance, although enumeration technically is also passive recon. And this slide, yeah, explains what enumeration is. It's basically what we've just been doing in the passive recon phase anyway. All right, so back to Kali Linux, if you will, Carlo. All right. Okay, so now we're getting into active recon. We're putting ourselves out there, we're putting it all on the line, and we're going to see what's going on with some of these websites that we have permission to run probes against. And the most common thing that you're going to see is Nmap. All right, so let's run an Nmap probe. SN is a ping type probe. So if I run this, apologize for my mouse scrolling noises if y'all heard that. This will go through every single IP address, or sorry, yes, IP address in this range, and it will tell us if it is up so that we know we can have something to fingerprint further. This is still technically enumeration, I would say, although it although once you start sending out some probes, it will become active. But this is just getting the IP addresses that we're going to see that are open. And you know what? I would consider this active recon as well. This is definitely active recon right here. When we use the dash lowercase s uppercase s flag when running nmap against that IP address, we can see which ports are open. So this specific address here, we've just used one. If I used the whole range like I used previously, it would take too long. But if we just run this dash SS against the one IP address here, we can just see what ports are open. Now, this will sort of give you away. I want you to be aware of that. Both of these actually. The second one is a little bit more intrusive, but we can understand what's going on by running another tool called TCP dump. TPC dump allows you to understand the traffic that's going in and out of your device. So let me show you this. I've used my own IP address here, my own local IP address, and so now it's listening. Anything that happens over the network will show up here. So if I go here and open up a new website, say if I go to Hacksaw, and I come back over here, I expect to see some activity. Yeah, it's already up, right? So this is sort of something similar to what intrusion detection system or intrusion prevention system or a firewall, an advanced one, will be showing on the other end. If you're running these probes, they're going to see the traffic that's coming in. All right. And then I'm going to run another one here. Let me open up a second terminal. All right. And I run this command here. All right. And so that was a much more targeted scan. Let's see if we can sort out some details here. It's a little bit busy, you notice. TCP dump is valuable, especially if you want to just export it into a CSV or another type document that you can use machine learning later to sort of filter through and get all the details, because this is sort of hard to look at, right? Well, this is where Wireshark comes to the rescue. Wireshark, let me run it. I'm going to use my Ethernet 0 interface. Okay, so this is essentially doing almost the same thing as TCP dump. It's listening for all the traffic on my device, in and out. So any probes will be seen here. Let me run these two now. Here. Okay, and then let's switch back over to Wireshark quickly and see what's going on. All right, the second one you noticed was a TC, or was a ping, right? Nmap was a probe, but ping is what? Is it TCP or is it an ICP? ICMP, that's right, ICMP. Many people, so I expect to see ICMP here in a second. TLS, TCP, and you can dig down in here. We can get the transmission control protocol, TCP details, frames, Ethernet frame, Internet Protocol version 4 is in use. And you can also filter this out. So ping is associated with ICMP. So if I were just type here in the search bar ICMP, okay, let me run that. I didn't filter it out correctly. Oh, probably because it wants the default lowercase that it's used to. ICMP. Let me do ICMP. Oops. Well, it sort of refreshed it, didn't it? All right. This happens from time to time. But anyway, we could do it the hard way, the manual way. Go up here and look for the TCP packets and dig through them. Okay, regardless, this is just the tip of the iceberg. In networking, Wireshark is a tool you're going to see all the time, not just in ethical hacking. If you need to diagnose problems on a system and prove that it's not the network and blame it on DNS, right? This is the go-to tool, Wireshark. But don't forget about TCP dump. It's more raw, but some people prefer it because they like the large amount of raw data. Really, it all just depends on use case, right? It's all about balance and using the right tool for the right occasion. All right, Carlo, if you could please take us back to the slide so we can briefly talk about 3.3. All right, so 3.3 is understanding the art of vulnerability scans. So there's different types of vulnerability scans: unauthenticated, authenticated, discovery, full, stealth, or compliance. Just be sure to use the one that you need. Sometimes you think more is more, but really less is more sometimes, because with active recon, you just want the detail that you need because you need to be in stealth mode a lot of the times. So if you put yourself out there and you try to run total scans all the time, you have a greater chance of giving yourself away. And that's something that we do not want to do. All right, the next slide. I believe that's all for 3.3. Let me double check. Yes, that's all for 3.3. So Carlo, can you please take us back one more time to Kali Linux so that we can, all right. Okay, great. So we're back inside my Kali Linux now. All right, so we've done some cool active reconnaissance here. We've taken it a step further past the passive recon. We've run some scans, Nmap. We've exposed ourselves a little. We've done port scanning. Then we've seen what that looks like from the opposite side using TCP dump and Wireshark. We have our good old faithful ping. So this mimics the steps in a typical vulnerability scan. I'm going to ping it, which anyone can do. It's not going to give yourself away. Totally passive. I can see that the website is reachable. All right, now let's cross into active enumeration against this same website. This is the ping scan, the -SV, I believe, is it? Yes, the ping scan. All right, so we see what is open. These are all the ports that are open, and we get some other valuable information here. But if we run the more advanced -O, we can see the operating systems. So now I get a hint here, Microsoft. I can see the system's actually running Linux from 4 to 5. A little bit of a more targeted scan, definitely active recon here. We're getting into beyond enumeration to fingerprinting specific systems, operating systems, and how that works together. And then finally, vulnerability scanning would not be complete without automated scans and scripts. There's tools to do that, and if we have time, I'm going to show you one cool tool to do that, but you want to start out with scripts. This is the way I recommend it. Before you use those automated tools, look at some Python scripts. This script right here using Nmap will test this website and see which vulnerabilities it's subject to, or which vulnerabilities it is vulnerable to. If they're greater than 9, you see equals 9 here. So if I run this simple script right here, which is included in Kali Linux, I didn't even have to create this script. It was already included in the build. And there are many more like this. And then look at this. These are the vulnerabilities that this website is vulnerable to, right? So you could just take a simple IP address with one command, see what it's vulnerable to. Once again, be careful. I wouldn't go out there trying these exploits unless you have permission but it even includes the websites here so you can get details about those exploits. Okay, seems like we do have time. So now we're going to go to my favorite that I've used in the field, right? When I was working in a knock, and this is called Z Attack Proxy or ZAP. Once you get familiar with the scripts and Nmap and chaining things together, you build yourself up. Now you have the confidence to understand what's going on under the hood with these automated tools. This one is called Z-Attack Proxy, and you can run automated scans just by typing in a URL. So if I was to say hackertraining.org here and run the scan, we would get some output. I already ran a scan. Let's see here. I already ran a scan against here, and I got some information back. Let me show you what it looks like. I just went with the mouse pad. Okay, so we got some raw results here concerning that website. Uh, it's valuable. Yeah, if you're using machine learning or you want to take the time to dig through this, you could even use a Python script, let's say, and sort of filter this out and get the information that you want out of it. But really, nothing beats the actual interface. Let me run this and see what we can see. Whoa, look at that. This is spidering, fingerprinting. You're definitely going to give yourself away if you're running this and you're unprotected. Totally active reconnaissance right now against hackertraining.org. Luckily, we have permission, but if we dug down into these specific endpoints and the sitemap and so forth, we can get a plethora of information that we can exploit further. And this opens all sorts of possibilities regarding our ethical hacking. All right, this is the last tool I want to show you, but for those who just joined, if you use Kali Linux and you go up to the menu here in the upper left, there are dozens and dozens of tools that are available just like this that you can start playing around with against websites that allow you to run scans, and you can have yourselves a lot of fun and build your skills up so that you can become an ethical hacker. Carlo, let's cut to the last slide, if you will. I want to talk about analyzing the vulnerability scans. All right, great. So analyzing the vulnerability scans. The vulnerability scans is sort of the top of the hill that we just got to, right? We built up from the manual commands, the ping, the host, the dig, to then we moved into the active reconnaissance with Nmap and the probes, to the automated scripts, and then we have the UI and Z-Attack proxy that we can run things simply and fast. But all of this even is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the beginning of what vulnerability scanning analysis is all about. You're going to take that information and you're going to weed out false positives, right? These are things that seem like vulnerabilities that are not. So you don't go on a lot of wild goose chases, or your team doesn't go on a lot of wild goose chases searching for things, ghosts in the system that aren't really there. All right. Vulnerability scan analysis involves understanding the scan results. What is the severity of the vulnerability? How many systems does it apply to? How was it detected? Was it found with an automated scanner or manually? What is the value of the device that is targeted? Is this device critical? What is the attack vector? What is the attack surface? Is there a possible workaround or mitigation available, right? So the tools are cool and the tools are fun, but in the real world, building the reports is where it's at. So practice, and you can use AI to help you. You can use just a simple GPT tool and say, this is what I found. Help me formulate this. Once again, don't share too much information, but just for practice, this is what I found. Help me build this into a report that I could submit to a real company. This is something that you could put in your portfolio. I use this tool, this tool, this tool. I found this against hackertraining.org. These are the vulnerabilities. These are the devices. Here's the next course of action. I ruled out the false positives and so on and so forth. So once you get here, you can consider yourself an ethical hacker as far as I'm concerned, right? But to get the full picture, take the Cisco Ethical Hacking course called the Ethical Hacker course on Cisco Networking Academy. You go to www.netacad.com and take the course. I highly recommend it. I love preparing for this webinar. This brought back a lot of memories of some cool things that I did in the past. Some of these tools I still use to this day. If you're involved in networking, like I said, Wireshark is one of those. Host, Dig, Ping, NSLookup. These are things you need to put in your skill set if you want to be ready for what's coming next, because it's very exciting, folks. All right. That being said, Carlo, if you want to take us to the Slido and explain to the audience and hear their feedback and answer their concerns.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alex. Great session indeed. I know that we're out of time. Actually, I was going to throw it back to you and ask if you have any closing remarks for our audience.
You know what? I don't mind if I do. Carlo, thank you very much. I just want to say that I hope to see all of you on the Cisco Networking Academy, the Cisco Learning Network, Cisco U, and the Cisco community. We're a community. We're a team. We're in this together. Thank you so much for joining. Happy hacking, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks again, Alex, and the whole team for bringing your knowledge to the Cisco community. Again, if you have a question, I encourage you to scan that QR code located towards the bottom right corner of your screen, actually, for this one to continue the conversation over on the Cisco Learning Network. Your feedback is important, and at this time, the Slido survey is live, so we do encourage you to take the time to participate and let us know how we did. Once again, we thank everyone for joining us today, and we will see you next time on the Cisco Learning Network. Have a great day.